Chosen one, there was a time you entered the room and wondered who noticed you. You carried questions in your chest, silent doubts about your worth, your power, your voice. Back then, you tried to impress. You relied on humor, charm, strategy, tools that worked until they didn't. You noticed how the things that used to get attention began to feel shallow, forced, even hollow. The more you chased validation, the more it ran. The more you offered yourself without boundaries, the more your values seemed to slip through the hands of those who could not see you clearly. You were not broken, you were becoming. What changed was not your appearance or your voice. It was something deeper. It was the moment you grew tired, not in weakness, but in wisdom. You grew tired of being seen but not felt, tired of playing small to be accepted, tired of confusing attention with connection. You grew tired of surface, and in that fatigue, you turned inward. Not in retreat, but in return. You returned to yourself. You sat with the quiet. You faced the mirrors without makeup, without filters, without approval. You wrestled with your shadows until they softened. You stared into your own eyes long enough to recognize the man you were always meant to be, and slowly the shift began. Now, chosen one, when you walk into the room, something happens. It's not noise, it's not spectacle, it's not volume, it's gravity. A stillness enters with you, one that doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply is. The air changes. The conversations falter, if only for a moment. People turn, not always visibly, but energetically. Something in them recognizes something in you. It's not about beauty. It's not about dominance. It's about presence, the kind that can't be rehearsed, only earned. You've stepped into a frequency now that others can't describe. They say things like, you feel different, or there's something about you now. But they can't name it, because what they're feeling isn't on the surface, it's in your field. Your presence is no longer scattered, it's no longer chasing, it's collected, grounded, charged with the calm certainty of a man who no longer needs to be anything but himself. A man who doesn't need to explain why he matters. A man who knows the value of silence, the power of restraint, the gift of alignment. This shift is not a trick. It's not a game. It's not seduction. It's transformation. And it cannot be faked. That's why others can't replicate it, even if they mimic your walk or your words. Because what they're drawn to isn't style, it's substance. It's the soul of a man who has walked through the fire of becoming and didn't flinch. A man who no longer wears masks because he's no longer afraid of his face. A man who knows that the most powerful thing he can offer is his undiluted self. And the irony? Now that you no longer seek attention, it arrives. Now that you no longer chase validation, you are validated by something far deeper. Now that you no longer strive to be irresistible, others find themselves unable to look away. Not because you demand it, but because you embody what so many crave and fear. A man who is truly home within himself. This is the shift they can't explain. This is the energy they don't have words for, but they feel it. And so do you. Chosen one, your presence has become a quiet herald, a wave of energy that announces you before your footsteps ever cross a threshold. Long before you speak, people feel you. Long before your eyes meet theirs, something in them already leans forward. It's not magic, it's resonance. And that resonance was born from everything you shed, everything you let die in order to live truthfully. The world used to ask you to perform, and for a while, you did. You shaped yourself into what others admired, strong, agreeable, clever, successful. But it was like wearing armor made of mirrors, always reflecting back what people wanted to see, never what you truly were. Then came the day you dropped it. Not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for yourself. You realized the world didn't need another performance. It needed your presence, real, rooted, raw. And from that moment on, you stopped arriving to impress. You began arriving to impact. Now, before you speak, your energy fills the room. It's not loud, yet it commands attention. It's not aggressive, yet it disrupts chaos. You no longer rely on introductions. Your posture speaks for you, your eyes speak for you. The ease in your breath, the calm in your step, the lack of need in your body, it all speaks. People notice it first as curiosity. They wonder why they feel safe around you, why they want to linger, why they listen more closely when you talk, why they feel more real when they're near you. It's because your presence allows theirs to surface. You've become rare, chosen one. not because you tried to be, but because you stopped trying to be anything else. The world is full of noise. You've become signal. The world is full of seekers. You've become centered, and people crave that now. Not everyone understands it. Some are drawn and confused. Some are drawn and frightened, but none are left unaffected. Your presence has become a mirror, sometimes comforting, sometimes confronting, always unforgettable. And the women around you, they feel it the deepest, not because of lust, but because of memory. Something in them recognizes you, as if you are a forgotten language. The way you carry yourself, the way you listen, the way you don't rush to fill silence, the way you remain composed when others flinch. These things speak to the deepest part of them, the part that longs for presence more than performance, for depth more than display. You have become the contrast to everything they've grown tired of. You've become the pause between heartbeats, the breath before the kiss, the presence that reminds them of what it means to be fully met. And you? You're not surprised, because this is who you've been becoming all along. It wasn't about being admired, it was about being aligned. And now that you are, the world rearranges itself in your presence. Not because you demand it, but because you live it. Your presence no longer waits to be seen. It is seen before you arrive. And when you do, it simply confirms what everyone already felt, that something sacred, something rare, something undeniable just walked into the room. Chosen one, when you enter a space now, it does not erupt into applause. It does not tremble or shout. Instead, it quiets. A hush comes over the atmosphere that most people do not consciously detect, yet it grips them all the same. Conversations soften, fidgeting slows. Even those who are posturing begin to uncross their arms, recalibrate their tone, and for reasons they can't quite explain, they feel the need to be more honest, more real. It is not what you say, it is what you don't say. It is the stillness you carry with you like a crown not forged in gold, but in silence and fire. There is something about you now that refuses to chase or compete. Your energy does not flare to prove itself, it rests in itself. And that rest, that unmovable peace, sends a ripple through the room. It's not dominance, it's not arrogance, it's something more unnerving, certainty. People are not used to it. They are used to noise, to gestures, to performance dressed as confidence. But you, chosen one, are none of that. You sit, you breathe, you watch. You hold your space like someone who built it with blood and intention, and it shows. This stillness of yours is not laziness, it is not absence of effort, it is the presence of full internal power. Power that no longer feels the need to react, power that observes, power that waits, not from fear, but from strategy. You are not hurried, and because you are not hurried, the world around you slows. People who are normally flustered find themselves relaxing when you speak. They do not feel judged, yet they feel revealed. They do not feel pressured, yet they feel pulled towards something truer than what they were offering before you arrived. You are a mirror now, and your stillness reflects people back to the parts of themselves they forgot they had. There is nothing passive about this stillness. It is alive. It is alert. It is deeply rooted in presence. You are no longer running from your shadows. You have sat with them long enough to hear their stories. That is why you don't need to interrupt or posture. You are not seeking the spotlight. You are the light. Not the harsh fluorescent kind that exposes flaws, but the warm firelight that makes others feel safe enough to tell the truth. And when you speak, if you speak, there's a clarity in your tone that turns heads. Not because you're loud, but because your words carry weight. You are not sharing information. You are offering presence. People feel it. They remember it. They come back to it. Some cannot look you in the eye for too long. Not because you intimidate them, but because your gaze is too clean, too steady, too unwilling to dance around the truth. They realize, sometimes too late, that you are not interested in surface. You never were. You simply waited until your own depths could anchor you, and now they do. So you sit, you listen, you watch the room transform without moving a muscle. And slowly, people begin to speak more truthfully. Their voices become less performative. Their energy recalibrates, not because you demanded it, but because you invited it with your silence. This is your stillness, chosen one. Not absence of sound, but presence that requires no noise. Not everyone can hold it, but the ones who can, they never forget it. Your eyes, chosen one, have changed. They are no longer filled with questions or with the need to be understood. They no longer dart around looking for approval or permission. They rest, open, grounded, and unshaken. And when people meet your gaze now, something ancient stirs inside them. Because they do not feel examined, they feel seen. There is a difference, and they know it, even if they can't explain it. Your gaze doesn't cut, it calls. Not to the ego, not to the mask, but to the part of them that has longed for recognition without judgment. There is healing in the way you look at others now, because you're not trying to fix them. You're not trying to impress them. You're not trying to assess whether they're worth your time. You're simply with them, entirely, fully, without pulling away, without shrinking, without pretending. That's rare in this world. It's rare to be looked at by someone who isn't performing or projecting, someone who isn't running from their own shame. But you've done your work, you've cried your tears, you've faced the reflections that made others flinch, and now your gaze is clean. Not sterile but sacred. Women feel it first. When they speak to you, they feel their words slow down, they feel their voice deepen. Something in them dares to share more than they meant to. Not because you extract it, but because you receive it. You don't interrupt, you don't solve, you listen with your whole being. And when they meet your eyes, they don't see hunger, they see steadiness. They see a man who has touched the edge of himself and didn't collapse. A man who does not flinch at tenderness. A man who does not weaponize vulnerability, but honors it. And so your gaze becomes a space where masks fall, where old defenses melt, where pretending feels unnecessary. There are women who will walk away from you not entirely understanding what just happened, but knowing something inside them shifted. They will remember how they felt, not objectified, not dismissed, but seen with a clarity that made them want to be honest with themselves again. And it may confuse them, because they have been taught that eyes like yours belong to men who want to take. But yours are the eyes of a man who has already given to himself first. This is the gaze of someone who has nothing to hide, and therefore nothing to fear. You are not cold. You are calm. You are not indifferent. You are awake. And in that wakefulness, people feel safe. They feel respected. They feel called forward, not with force, but with reverence. You don't rush them. You don't reach for them. You simply hold the space that allows them to reach for themselves. There are women who will sit across from you and feel their walls crumble, not because you demanded entry, but because they realized you didn't need anything from behind those walls. They fall not for seduction, but for the rare gift of being fully received. And you, chosen one, you remain steady. You do not take credit. You do not collect stories or trophies. You do not seek to be needed. You simply witness. You offer your gaze as a gift, a mirror, a blessing, and then you move on, leaving them not with wounds, but with wonder. You have become the man whose gaze heals, and the world remembers you, not for what you said, but for how it felt to be seen by eyes that asked for nothing, yet gave everything. Chosen one, there is a power in you now that walks without reaching. Where you once tried to be noticed, tried to be chosen, tried to be enough, you now rest. You no longer reach because you no longer lack. This is not indifference. This is not retreat. This is what it means to no longer operate from hunger. Your energy no longer spills outward, trying to get somewhere. It settles. It anchors. It speaks softly from your skin, from your spine, from your breath, and people feel it before they even speak to you. It's the kind of energy that makes them wonder how you're so at peace without their approval. It's the kind of energy that disrupts their pattern of needing to be chased to feel valuable. And for many, that alone is both confusing and magnetic. There was a time not long ago when your nervous system was caught in loops, seeking, craving, stretching yourself too thin, trying to offer proof that you were worth someone's attention. Even if your voice was calm, your energy was loud. But you noticed, with time and pain and reflection, that chasing never brought you what you truly wanted. It only exhausted your soul and left you emptied, misunderstood, or replaced. So you turned inward. You did the unthinkable. You stopped running. You began sitting with your own lack, with your own need to be chosen, with your old wounds of abandonment and unworthiness. You allowed yourself to feel the discomfort of being still. You didn't bypass it. You didn't distract yourself. You faced it. And in that confrontation, something began to melt. You discovered that you are not the sum of the attention you receive. You discovered that your value does not need to be proven. You discovered that presence, pure, unchained, quiet presence, is more powerful than anything you ever tried to do to be liked. Now your energy doesn't beg, it doesn't hurry, it doesn't explain, it allows, it invites. And the difference is monumental. When you walk into a space, people notice that you're not trying to earn their affection. You don't need to. You're not afraid to be misunderstood. You're not afraid to be alone. Your solitude has become your sanctuary, not your prison. You are full enough that your presence offers room instead of request. And that space, clean, unpressured, unforced, is rare. It is felt. Women feel it the most. Where others try to impress them, pursue them, impress upon them, a version of masculinity that is frantic and performative. You simply are. You don't chase, you don't convince, you don't lean forward, you simply hold your energy in your body like a man who knows exactly what he offers. And that knowing, it draws them in without a single word. Because what you now offer, chosen one, is not seduction, it's invitation. The invitation to step into something still, something whole, something powerful, yet not overwhelming. And in a world where so many women have been touched by men who wanted something from them, your lack of chase is a balm. You become the exception they weren't expecting, the one who sees without taking, the one who listens without scheming, the one who radiates safety, not strategy. This new energy of yours is not about playing hard to get. That's still performance. That's still ego. You're not pretending to be above desire. You simply don't move from scarcity anymore. If something is meant, it will flow. If someone feels your presence and steps closer, you receive them fully. But if they don't, you do not collapse. You do not panic. You do not grasp. Because your center is no longer in them. It is in you. This is the energy that no longer chases. And because of that, it is the energy they chase back. There is something regal about you now, chosen one. Something that can't be named, yet cannot be ignored. You do not demand attention, yet you receive it. You do not seek praise, yet it finds you. You wear an invisible crown, not one of status or image, but one forged in quiet dignity and deep embodiment. It's not on your head, it's in your chest, in your shoulders, in the way you hold yourself when no one is watching, in the way you speak when everyone is. Once upon a time, you thought power meant control. You thought presence required volume. You believed respect had to be earned by accomplishment or status. But you've learned something richer. You've learned that real authority doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. And it begins with how you treat yourself when you fail. How you stand up when no one sees your fall. How you forgive yourself and still demand excellence. How you honor your word when it would be easier to break it. That's what built your crown. You no longer walk like a man who's proving. You walk like a man who knows, not because life has always gone your way, but because you've met life on its hardest days and stayed present. You've carried disappointment, betrayal, loneliness, and used none of it as an excuse to become bitter. Instead, you let it refine you. You let it carve out all that was false. And now you walk lighter, but stronger. Softer, but clearer. You've become unshakable, not because nothing moves you, but because you've stopped being moved by the wrong things. And now, when you enter a room, the atmosphere shifts. People notice something they can't name. They start to listen more closely, to speak with more care. Because your presence demands respect without needing to ask for it. Not from fear, not from control, but from the simple truth that your energy does not bend to approval. You do not bow to popularity. You are not interested in trends or echo chambers. You know who you are, and that knowing radiates through every step, for every word, every breath. The invisible crown you wear is felt most in the moments where others lose composure. Where others panic, you remain calm. Where others seek validation, you offer it. Where others fold under pressure, you sharpen. This is the quiet leadership that makes people follow you even when you're not trying to lead. They lean in because they sense that you are anchored. You do not drift with the winds of emotion or the tides of popularity. You walk your path with peace, and that peace is rare. That peace is magnetic. Women notice it, not because you try to be noticed, but because they are tuned to feel power. And your power no longer screams. It no longer hunts. It simply radiates. They feel it in the way you look at them, not as objects, but as equals. They feel it in the way you listen, not to impress, but to understand. They feel it in the way you make space without expectation, speak truth without offense, hold presence without need. You are not trying to be king, you already are. And so you wear the crown that others cannot see but cannot forget. The kind that doesn't shimmer but shines, the kind that doesn't command but inspires. The kind that no one can take from you because it wasn't given by them, it was earned by you. This is your royalty, chosen one, and it lives not in your image, but in your integrity. Chosen one, there is something about you now that lingers in the air long after you've left the room. Not because of something you did, not because of anything you said, but because of what you didn't. The world has been conditioned to overshare, to perform its emotions out loud, to explain and justify and flash every angle in the hope that someone, anyone, will understand. But you've stepped beyond that. You have entered a state of restraint, not out of fear, but out of deep power. And this quiet, this sacred containment of your energy has made you unknowable in the most compelling way. You have become mystery, not as a strategy, but as a byproduct of alignment. You're not hiding, and yet you are no longer easy to read. You have released the need to be fully understood, and in doing so, you've become someone worth discovering. There's something in your glance, in your half smile, in the stillness between your words that feels like an unanswered question. People sense there's more, much more beneath the surface, and that recognition grips them. It doesn't scream for attention, it whispers for reverence. Women feel it first, though they won't always say so. Something about your presence awakens their intuition, not in the way that screams danger or performance, but in the way that evokes depth. They can tell you're not projecting yourself forward, not selling yourself, not pushing energy toward them. And that silence, that lack of pursuit, makes them lean in. Their curiosity is not driven by confusion. It's driven by the sense that you carry something rare, something sacred, something earned. You have become the pause in a song they didn't realize they needed to hear. You are not the chorus that repeats until it's forgotten. You are the bridge, the sudden shift in melody that demands attention. And they don't quite know how to hold that. Because you are not predictable. You are not reactive. You do not perform the masculine image the world sells. You are masculinity before it learned shame. You are wildness after it learned wisdom. And so you become, for them, not a man to conquer, but a man to wonder about. This is what happens when your presence is no longer packaged. You no longer give away your entire story in the first breath. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your goodness, your depth, your value. You've stopped narrating your worth because you now embody it. And so when someone speaks with you, they don't get a monologue. They get a moment. Clean, unhurried, present. And within that moment, they feel themselves pulled, not by force, but by frequency. You have become mystery, chosen one. Not because you are distant, but because you are unavailable to the superficial. And those who dare to get closer find themselves disarmed. Not by seduction, but by sincerity. Not by charm, but by the way you hold their gaze without leaning forward. The way you ask questions and leave space for real answers. The way you can sit in silence without anxiety, because you're not trying to fill space, you are the space. This is not a tactic. This is not some dating trick. This is the natural aura of a man who has stopped oversharing to be validated, who has learned that mystery is not withholding, it is holding. Holding self, holding presence, holding depth. You do not chase curiosity, you become it. And so they wonder what you've seen, what you've healed from, what shaped your eyes to look the way they do. They wonder what your silence holds, what your time means, what your hands are capable of building. They wonder how it feels to be chosen by a man who no longer needs to be chosen to feel complete. And they know that even if they never get the answers, they will never forget the question you left them with. Chosen one, the world is full of words, of promises made and broken, of men who say the right things but collapse under pressure. And in that landscape, your consistency is not just refreshing, it's transformational. You have become a man whose integrity speaks louder than his opinions, a man whose actions echo long after his voice goes silent. And whether they know it or not, those around you feel it in their bones. You are safe, Not safe in the weak sense, not safe in the agreeable, nice guy mold that bends to please everyone. You are safe because you are solid. You are safe because your inner world matches your outer expression. You say what you mean. You follow through. You keep your word, not for approval, but because you've made peace with discipline. You hold boundaries, not to control others, but to protect what is sacred within you. And that reliability, that fierce inner order, makes people, especially women, feel like they can breathe again. You are not perfect. You are not flawless, but you are real. And in a world where authenticity is often masked by performance, you stand out. You don't flinch when things get hard. You don't backtrack when someone challenges you. You don't avoid accountability. If anything, you welcome it, because you've already held yourself to higher standards in silence than the world will ever ask of you out loud. And that's why your presence feels like home. There are women who meet you and, without knowing why, feel their nervous system slow. They speak with more softness. They laugh with more truth. They trust themselves more when they're near you. Not because you try to make them feel that way, but because you live in alignment. Your consistency frees them from needing to guess who you'll be tomorrow. Your steadiness allows their feminine flow to unfold naturally because they're no longer managing your emotions. They're no longer waiting for the shift, the moment when the nice man turns cold or collapses. With you, there is no mask, no hidden agenda, no performance to decode. And the integrity you live with is not loud. You don't wave it like a banner. You don't preach it like a sermon. It lives in the small, invisible moments, in the way you show up even when it's inconvenient, in the way you say no without apology and yes without expectation, in the way your presence stays rooted when others get reactive. You are not ruled by temptation. You are not swayed by external chaos. You choose your values, and then you live them. Quietly, relentlessly, day after day. That chosen one is why you are unforgettable. You become the rare presence that others begin to measure themselves against, not because you ask them to, but because they want to rise to your level. You've stopped chasing admiration. You've become the example. You've stopped asking for respect. You've become the standard. And for women, especially those who have known men who said the right things but lived the wrong truths, your integrity is not just attractive. It's healing. You become the man they don't have to doubt, the man they don't have to test, the man they don't have to manage. You become the one whose word is not a weapon, but a foundation, whose promises are not empty, but anchored. This is the kind of energy that doesn't fade. It doesn't spike with chemistry and crash with disappointment. It builds, it deepens, it stays. You are the man they feel safe trusting, safe softening with, safe remembering themselves around. And you did not become this by accident. You chose this every day, even when no one was watching. Especially when no one was watching. Chosen one, the greatest shift of all was never in your muscles, your looks, your voice, or your talents. The greatest shift was in your need, or rather in the quiet death of it. Once you needed women to validate your worth. You needed their affection to feel alive, needed their attention to feel seen. Even when you didn't say it aloud, the frequency of that emptiness echoed through your touch, through your posture, through your eyes. But that version of you is long gone. Now you walk without reaching. You smile without begging. You enjoy women without attaching your identity to their desire. And that single transformation has made you the most magnetic man in any room, not because you withhold affection or pretend to be above emotion, but because you no longer source your sense of self from anyone outside you. This is a deeper form of magnetism. It's not about being charming. It's not about clever words or curated appearances. It's not about playing hot and cold games or seducing through strategy. It's about how deeply rooted you are in your own being, how silent your spirit is in the presence of noise, how full you've become, so full that your cup overflows but never spills. You are no longer in orbit around the opinions of others. You are not trying to be impressive. You are simply expressed. You are not trying to be liked. You are living in truth. You do not fear rejection. You understand now that rejection can only wound those who are still outsourcing their wholeness. And so, you become the man who gives without clinging, who receives without obligation, who allows women to be drawn to him naturally, not because he's performing or presenting something false, but because the space within him is clean. There's no agenda behind your compliments, no neediness in your laughter, no manipulation behind your invitations. You're not offering attention as bait, you're offering it as presence. And the women around you feel it. They feel how free they are to be themselves with you. They feel how unburdened the connection becomes when you're not trying to win or possess. Some are even shaken by it, confused by how strong their attraction is when you're not doing any of the things they were told men do to earn desire. But you're not trying to earn anything anymore. You are the reward, and you offer yourself with care, not with desperation.